All right, I'm kind of doing this on the fly, but just so you know, what we're going to do is I'm going to take about 15 minutes and go over the whole program using the hard copy that you have in front of you. All right? After we get done with that, according to this, we're supposed to be, so we will have done calculator version 3. Instead of giving you another array program, because it's just a lot to throw at you. All right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to change this around, and we'll start to go over this responsive website design. You've got a copy of that. I sent it to you today. Don't worry about it. I just want you to look. But ideally, by around 10 o'clock or so, okay, the rest of the period will be lab. If by that time, you don't have to turn in this calculator, all these versions, you don't have to turn in any of them. But it's going to be in your best interest to work on it and try to get it to work. All right? All right. So this is the working version. This is the one that I gave you. All right. Two things I want to mention. First of all, and Brady was right, the reason I was getting undefined is we weren't returning that operation once we were setting it. All right. So I put a line at the bottom here that says return the op, and you notice now if we run it and you put in 100, 100 plus, it says 100 plus 100 equal 200. If we run it again, 100, and then we do the minus, you get the minus sign. If we run it again, and we put in a 3, we get the multiply sign. If we run it again, and we put in a 4, we get the divide sign. Whoops. Okay. And if we put in anything other than a 1, 2, 3, or 4, all right, it just asks us to do it again. All right, so all that stuff looks fine as far as I can tell. This program is by no means perfect. Look at that, 100 nothing, 100 equal 25. All right. And I probably should have taken more time than I did creating it, but I just sat down in an afternoon and that's what I did. All right. But I want to mention one last thing. If you'd all please look up here because we didn't talk about this at all. After you print the result, this is the code here, these 5, 6 lines, whatever it is, that asks the user if they want to run the program again. So what comes up on the screen is a prompt that says, do you wish to run the program again? And notice there's a Y there. All right, that's the default value. Okay, and I just called it wanna. Then this line right here, please again look up on the screen here. This says whatever I entered in there, grab the first character and make it uppercase. Does that make sense to you? If I didn't do this, I could have left this off. I could have left that part that you see in gray there. I could have left it off. But then I would have had to set something like if first item not equal to Y and first not equal, whoops, equal to, I would have had to check both upper and lowercase y, because you could have put it in an upper or lowercase. So by using that to uppercase, that means I only have to check for uppercase. I don't have to check for upper or lower. All right? Now, again, one of the things that I sent you today, and I know you've seen it before, I know I showed it to you before, all right? But one of the things that I sent you in your email today so you all got this, all right? And it's called 11.7 and 11.8.zip. All right, so you all have this. And what is in there, where's the other one? It's unzipped. There it is. What is in there are 3 different things. The first thing is literally, this is stuff I've done over the years. I've got, for some reason, there's no number 9 and there's no number 10. I don't know why, but there's 18 copies of simple array programs that show you some different stuff with arrays. All right? If you look up on the screen here, remember this? Does this look familiar rather? Because I literally stole it right from your test. So if you want to run those different programs, there's array 1 through array 8, then array 11 through array 20. You can use the same file, but you got to change the number in here every time. I didn't want to make 18 of these. I thought that would be silly to do. All right. Now, the other thing I want you to look at is, and I know you've seen this before, but I'm going to come to this URL right here. If we're going over this and you're like, you know, Jeff, I really kind of understood what we were doing back in the days when we were doing the building websites, but now I'm just really kind of hosed and I'm having a hard time understanding. Then I'd recommend that you go out here. There's a lot of places that you can go out to, but this is that Hunlock, the archived one, and this is their array thing. And what it has in here, if it ever comes up, all right, is it literally has, if I go down far enough, it shows all of the major routines that are available when you run this stuff, plus there's examples for all of these. All right? I mean, I could just sit here and just lecture. We could have class and I could lecture Monday through Friday, but I don't think you'd learn that way, or you wouldn't learn as well that way. All right? So that's why the policy of this institution is to try to never give you more than 2 hours in a period. Now, we've been breaking that on the Fridays the last couple weeks, but before that, I don't think we really did. All right. So again, this is what I'd recommend, and I've got examples of some of these in those files that I gave you. I don't have examples of all of them, but there's examples of some of them in there. All right. The other thing that's in there, if you look up on the screen here, is there is a folder that's called responsive. I just gave you the whole thing. So part 1 is real simple. I started to create this site, and there's almost no CSS in it. You've seen things that look like this before. All right? In fact, if you look at the CSS file for this, that's it. So I set a background. That's the yellow. I set a font size. I set a font family. I set a font color, a line height, and a text align. That's it for the body. The container, minimal. The logo, minimal. The content, minimal. The sidebar, minimal. And if you look at it, what actually runs now with that example, I think it'll be in here, this is not responsive. See that? But if you do look up here, see this? And I'm going to show you this in just a minute and go over the code with you. It may not make any sense. But the idea is this shows you how wide your screen is all the time. All right? So notice as I change this, can you see how that number is getting smaller? All right? And I want to show you that in just a second. Then in the second iteration of this, all right, so the second part of this, it gets much better. All right? Because when you look on here, there's much more CSS, which I'm not going to go through with you, but there's much more CSS. You'll notice I changed colors and stuff like that on here. These don't go anywhere. These are just links. All right, but they don't go anywhere. And this link is white all the time because it's the active link. These buttons don't go anywhere. But you can see it looks a lot nicer aesthetically. This looks nicer than the first one did. All right? And also you'll notice that if we go up to the top again and I take this and go to and minimize it, you can see the width. Now this is better because watch when I start to make it smaller, watch what happens. Not much. It's a little better, but it's still not responsive. So let's look at the next example. And that's in part 3 right here, I believe, not there. Again, this is by no means perfect, but now watch what happens as we get it smaller. Why isn't it? I'm trying to figure out now why it's not doing anything, but because it works. There. See that? When it gets smaller, now watch what will happen. Why it's doing this, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. There you go. Watch the title up here that says My Very Unofficial. All right, so you can see as it gets smaller. Okay? And what I wanted to show you on this was just a couple things. All right. First of all, if we go to the CSS file, you'll notice that there's a few times in here where it says transition. And you may or may not have noticed, but sometimes the heading got bigger or smaller or moved where it was left justified to center. That's how long you want that transition to take place. So I want this to happen over 1 second. Because otherwise what happens is it just changes. And if you do it over a second or 2 seconds, the user can see it actually happening as something gets bigger or smaller. All right? Just so you saw that. All right? And you'll notice if you take a look in here, this is the last style sheet. The first one was pretty small, but the second one is pretty big. What I want you to get out of this one is this. These, again, are media queries. Start media queries. So this is a screen that's between 768 pixels and 1,000 pixels. And you say, that's fine, Jeff. How the heck would I know where I am with that? That's this thing. That's that number right there. So you'll see, notice when I get it to 768 pixels about. I'm not showing you, I'm not very dexterous. But notice that when it gets underneath there, so now it's 791, it's 769. In fact, it blew up just a little bit before that. But you see that? It's moving, so when it reaches a certain level. So, do you care? You should care very much. Because when you're writing this, since you have to write it for different type of media, the reason that that's important is this will be iPad or tablet. This will be like an iPad mini. This will be for a smartphone. Okay? Does that make sense? And I want to show you one last thing regarding that. I found this online this morning. In fact, I think I kept it and put it in here. Okay? It says, Chrome crushing it in the browser wars while Edge continues to sputter. All right? Microsoft has found out that people aren't using Edge. And I got this chart, which I find really interesting. Notice how it was. This is literally, what, a year and 3 or 4 months ago? Chrome had 28% of the market and IE had 53%. So in 16 months, it's now Chrome has 55% and IE is down to 23. All right. The reason I'm telling you that is your browser of choice should be Chrome. If you're using something else, you should be using Chrome. Because from what I can tell, it's going to keep getting bigger and bigger. Well, I use Firefox. Fine, they got a big 11.14% of the market. So when you're starting to develop for different things, to me, in my opinion, the number one thing that you should be developing for is get it to look good on a Chrome machine. All right, or a Chrome browser. Then go to IE, then go to Firefox. And now notice Edge, 5%. All right. Safari, I think that number is wrong. I think it's actually bigger than that. The reason I think it's bigger than that is Safari is what you get on an Apple, and it's what you get on an iPad by default. You can still put other browsers on it. All right, yes.
I know, but by default, most people don't change it from...
Yes, yeah, that's what I'm saying. You can, but most people don't. Unless you're going to do some development work yourself. All right, I do some work, and then I try to go and see what it looks like in the emulator and the like. So I've got different browsers on my Mac. All right. And then finally, other. All right. But again, pretty much shows you the way things are. And going along with that, the other reason that I wanted to show you this, and it's funny, what have I spent? 5 minutes on this, going over this stuff and showing you this stuff, all right? So what are we doing? So we're saying, for example, when it's media only, when it's between 240 pixels and 568, 568 would be is the pixel size for about the largest cell phone that there is. Just so you know, that's where that number comes from. So in that case, we change the width of the container. You can change anything you want. But the stuff that's in here only applies when it's within that pixel range. All right? And you have to start understanding that. So when you took the test, that's what I was looking for. We did talk about media queries. We didn't talk a lot about them. Your book doesn't talk a lot about them. So I decided to give you this particular example. You can take a look at it. I would recommend that if you're going to tear it apart, redo it, make your own site so it's responsive, etc., that's fine. Go ahead and do that. But make a copy of this and work with a copy so you always have the original. But that's why I sent it to you. And it's funny because I probably put in a total of about 6 hours for something that took me about 10 minutes to go over with you. All right? So what I'd like you to do for the rest of the period, if you're behind, please try to catch up. All right, I'll still take, because some of you this morning turned in your chapter 3 stuff, or you turned it in last night, or whatever. I'm going to start grading those myself now. But if you get them in today, the chapter 3 stuff that was due, I think it was due last Friday or Thursday, I'll still give you full credit for it. All right? But some of you, like I said, it's 5 points here, it's 10 points here, it's etc. But if you fall behind, those all add up. You know, you miss 5 assignments, that's half a test. All right? So what we'll do then tomorrow is, you know, I'm just doing this on the fly, so to speak, but tomorrow we'll come through and we're not going to do any more of this responsive website design stuff. So tomorrow we're going to spend 1 or 2 hours going over a few more array examples. We're going to write this if you want to look up on the screen right here. Let's see, where do I have it? Yeah. I've got it, but it's not open. So we're going to go over, okay, I'll have to change it to array fun. This has been a heck of a period here. Oh, it's just called array, not array fun. Okay. All right, we're going to go through a program tomorrow where we're going to, it's going to be similar to the one today, but we're going to generate a simple array that's going to give you 8 different possibilities. And we'll generate an array of random numbers. I think I told you this last week. We'll get the biggest number, the smallest number, the sum of the numbers, the average of the numbers, and we'll be able to sort the array in ascending order, so 1, 2, 3, or descending order, 3, 2, 1. All right? And we will be going over that tomorrow. That'll probably take the first 2 hours. And the rest of the period will be lab again. All right? I know that Amin had asked, so Wednesday will be your written test for Chapter 3. All right, we won't have to worry about this. Thursday, I will lecture on Chapter 4 and do the test review for Chapter 4. No class Friday, you already knew that. Monday will be lab. Tuesday will be the written test for Chapter 4, and the rest of the period will be lab. So you got a lot of lab time. If you are behind, please try to catch up. If you're caught up, but you're having problems with arrays, look at some of those programs that I gave you and go through them and run them. Hopefully that'll help with your understanding. You can always go out to w3schools.com and get information on this stuff too. All right? That's all that I had. So I revised this. Tomorrow we'll do a couple of array programs, then we'll have lab. Wednesday will be your written test for chapter 3, and then lab. Thursday I'll do the lecture for chapter 4 and some debugging exercises for you. So test Wednesday.